another part of this important week in learning about fractions there are a lot of little things that would help you. So I wanted in this video just to give you some fraction tips, some things you may already know, but things I want you to remember if they've gotten to the back part of your brain, just in case. So this one seems like a simple thing to remember, but I just wanted to remind you that 1/2 plus 1/2 equals 2/2 or 1 whole. And you're thinking, well, Miss Weaver, you don't need to tell me that. I know that. And I know that you do. But it's going to help us when we start estimating and adding. Because I always like for you to ask yourself, once you've done a problem, is this answer reasonable? Does this answer make sense? And so if we always keep in the back of our brain about the 1/2 plus 1/2 equals 1 whole, then that'll help us to know I either did that problem correctly or incorrectly. So the second little tip is I want you to always kind of be able to compare the numerator and the denominator. Now I've put up here some simple comparisons. This one says 3/6, 5/10, 10/20. Each one of these are representing half. I want you to see the pattern, that how I know that, because the numerator is half of the denominator. Half of the denominator, half of the denominator. So if I was trying to compare a fraction and I knew that 3/6 was 1/2, then what would I know about 5/6? I would know that's greater than 1/2. Or I might know that 1/6 is less than 1/2. I need to know these things when I'm trying to make sure my answers are reasonable in what I'm doing. The same thing is true for 5/10. I know that 5/10 is 1/2. So if I have 4/10, I've almost got a half. I'm very close to a half. And if I have 9/10, then I almost have a whole. It's almost at 10/10, and I know that I'm almost at a whole. Here, same thing with 10/20. If I have 11/20, I know I have just a tad bit more than a half. And this helps us when we're trying to estimate fractions. So, if I had, let's say 1/6, let me come up here and add something up here. Let's add 3/10. Way less than a half. So, if I had 1/6 plus 3/10, this is way less than a half, and this is way less than a half. If I'm adding them together when I have my final answer, would it be reasonable to think that my final answer could be 5? No, it wouldn't, because I don't even have 2 halves here. So I'm not even going to be close to a whole. So I know that my answer should be around a half or so, but not much more. So it helps us when we're estimating. I also know, let's take for example, if I used 5/6. 5/6 less than a half or more than a half? More than a half. So if I added 5/6 plus 9/10, which is also more than a half, is my answer going to be greater than or less than 1? What's your guess? Your best guess would be, think about it for just a minute, I've got more than a half, way more than a half. My answer is going to be greater than 1. So if my answer when I get here is 7/8, that's not a 1 or greater than a 1. I will have done something incorrectly. Let me show you a visual of that. Let this be a whole. And it's going to be hard for me to hold everything up here, and I may drop something, but that's okay. So if I have half, and I add to that 3/6, I have two halves making a whole. So I can kind of make my guess and say, it's going to be equal to 1. But if I have 1/2 and I've added 4/6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, I want you to see that it's hanging over the edge. Is 1/2 plus 4/6 going to be greater than or less than 1? Well, I can see it's got a little hang off here, so it's more than 1. It's more than 1 by a 6. So I know that my answer is going to be greater than 1. But if I have 4/6, that's greater than 1/2, and I have 3/5, also greater than 1/2, you can see that it hangs off the edge. So I know my answer is going to be greater than 1. So if you need to make some little manipulatives to do this at home to practice, feel free. You may already have something like that. Kind of helps confirm what the numbers show. The next thing, when we know that a fraction is greater than 1, I want to make sure that you understand how I know that. First of all, I know that both of these fractions are greater than 1 because the numerator is bigger than the denominator. 7 is bigger than 6, 8 is bigger than 5. So that tells me right away that this simplifies into something greater than 1. These kind of fractions, when the numerator is bigger than the denominator, those are called improper fractions. It's not proper to have the numerator greater than the denominator. So if I need to simplify this, when I know this, I simply divide the denominator into the numerator. So 6 goes into 7 one time. 1 times 6, 6. Subtract, and I have 1 out of 6 left. I have 1 out of 6 left. Same thing over here. 5 divides into 8. 5 goes into 8 one time. 1 times 5 is 5. 3, there's nothing more to bring down, so I have 3 out of 5 left. So that's what those equal. That's, again, knowing that our fractions either add up together or you've just been shown a fraction that's improper because the numerator is bigger than the denominator. The last thing I want to remind you about in the tips for fractions, yay for this day, is simplifying fractions, which we've done in the last couple of weeks. Just want to remind you about it. You have to find the greatest common factor to simplify a fraction. And all your answers are going to be asked to be simplified. If you don't simplify them, I'm not going to be able to give you full credit. Any kind of test that you take for school, trying to get into college, they're always going to look for your fraction to be simplified. So, my first fraction, we just did this last week. This is just a review. 8 over 10, 8 tenths. So I'm going to find the greatest common factor to be able to divide into both of those. So I can list my factors out beside, and you know from last week how I like to do mine. I start with 1 and find its pair. 1 times 8, then I go up, does 2 go into it? 2 times 4, 3, no, 4 does. So those are all my factors. I have them that quickly. 10, start with 1, and its pair is 10. Does 2 go into 10? Yes, it does, 5 times. Does 3 go into it? Nope. 4? Nope. 5? Yes, and it's already here. Since I already have it, then I know I've covered all my factors. So now I'm looking for the largest number in both lists. That's 2. So I'll divide 8 by 2 and get 4. And I'll divide 10 by 2. Remember that balancing act. We have to do the same thing. 10 divided by 2, 5. So that would be the simplified answer I was looking for. Same thing over here. We're going to look for the factors and find the greatest common factor, the GCF, and divide. So my factors of 14 are 1 and 14. Does 2 go into it? Yes, it does, because it's even. 2 times 7 is 3, 4. I'm just doing it in my brain, those fast facts that I know. 5, 6, 7. It does, but it's already here. So now I know I've tested everything and I have all my factors. Here we go. I'll start with 21. I always start with 1, and it's buddy. 21. 1 times 21 equals 21. Does 2, is 2 a factor? No. 3, yeah. 3 times 7. 4 go into 21? Nope. 5? No. 6? No. 7? Yes. And it's already here, so I know that I've finished finding all my factors. The greatest common factor here is 7. I'll divide both by 7. 14 divided by 7, 2. 21 divided by 7, 3. So my final answer that I'd be looking for to solve this problem would be 2/3. Those are just some of your fast tips to remind you. You may need to watch this a couple of times just to take it all in, because these are some very important things. You've got to know this to move on.